Hello guys, welcome here to yet another edition of Out of Turn 4. We're back after the long racing weekend, and of course we hope you had a safe one. Of course. Anyway, here we go. Coming up on the show, we will discuss the latest on Project 91. We're going to have our race weekend picks. It's scattered all over the place this weekend. Oh man. But we begin today with the recap of the biggest race weekend, and we start off with NASCAR at Charlotte. So Ross Chastain kicked off the Charlotte race weekend with a victory in the Truck Series, and of course it is his first truck win since 2019 when he won at the Pocono Raceway. But what should be noted from that race, the biggest part of it, Kyle Busch came home in P7. He has not won any of his 4 starts this season. That's a little bit concerning. Now, normally, Kyle Busch not winning is a good thing, and it still is. But in the Truck Series, it's concerning that he hasn't won yet. And of course, he only has one more start this season. I don't exactly know where. It might be at Gateway. I haven't seen any entry lists yet, so I can't confirm. But one thing's for sure, Kyle Busch is struggling. He is not happy with his own race cars, and it's going to be a fun week here when he gets back to his own race shop. It's just unbelievable how this team is struggling so far, with him at least, because normally by now he'd have 2 or 3 wins belted out. I mean, he doesn't lose in the Truck Series, let alone the NASCAR Xfinity Series. So, interesting is the word for it. But we skip ahead to the NASCAR Xfinity Series at Charlotte, and Josh Berry, of course, it was a Junior Motorsports dominated race, but he was the one who came out victorious over teammate Justin Allgaier. It is his 2nd win this season and his 4th career win. Of course, all of his wins came in the last 2 years. Just remarkable run for Josh Berry these last 2 years. He's really become very relevant. He wasn't that relevant before on the NASCAR scene, but now he's really become quite relevant, and man, he looks good. But we skip ahead to the biggest race of the weekend, and of course I just want to say kudos to the NASCAR safety team. If we needed any more proof that these cars are safe, go look at Chris Buescher's wreck from Sunday. Of course, Chris Buescher went flipping wildly in the grass, but just remarkable. Denny Hamlin is the winner of the Coca-Cola 600. Of course, he sat on the pole for the race. I didn't watch much of that race. I had to work early in the morning on Monday. I wasn't actually planning to watch it to begin with, but the racing was okay. I think it shows steady progress. It's still not where it needs to be for the Coca-Cola 600. And the other issue, of course, that race, I believe, ran well past midnight, from what my understanding was. It was a over 5-hour race. Bob Pockrass confirmed that it was the longest race in the history of Charlotte, or in the history of the sport. 619.5 miles these guys drove. But something's got to be done still with Charlotte. The Coke 600, the racing the last 5 years have just been brutal to watch. And this year, I mean, it made a step, I think, from what I saw, in the right direction. But it still needs a lot of work. Because, to be honest, when the racing is just as bad as Monaco, it's not good. Although Monaco was interesting this year, Sergio Perez went on to win the race at Monaco as we step into the F1 scene. But the biggest note of that race, of course, Haas F1's Mick Schumacher. And Schumacher got in a serious crash on Sunday where his car essentially split in half. We've seen Elliott Sadler's car with the engine ripped out of it. We've seen Kyle Busch. We've seen a lot of the Danica Patrick crashes. But I don't think and I've also been in person to watch Robert Wickens crash into the fence. But this one, I have never seen anything like it, where the car just split in half. That is just scary to think about. But the fact that I think Schumacher's alive, he's doing okay, that, again, I can't say enough about the safety of auto racing in today's world. Because if this was 5-6 years ago, I don't think we'd be talking Mick Schumacher anymore. So the fact that he survived is remarkable. And the fact, again, I'm just in shock still, just looking at it. So, but congratulations to Sergio Perez. Congratulations to Denny Hamlin. They won 2 legs of the greatest day in racing on Sunday. Now we're on to the biggest race on Sunday. So Marcus Ericsson becomes a first-time Indy 500 winner and the first Swede to win it in quite a few years. But it is also, should be noted, that it is the first, and this one was a shocking stat, by the way, the first Indy 500 win for Chip Ganassi Racing since 2012 when Dario Franchitti won his third. Of course, it was not dominated by Marcus Ericsson. You'd have to go back to the final pit stops, and of course, it was dominated most of the race by Scott Dixon. Dixon, though, his last pit stop, he went for a little bit of a slide coming into the pit lane, and it looked very minor. It looked like, maybe a little bit of brake lockup. Well, race control played it strict, and they called Scott Dixon for speeding on the pit lane with under 40 to go, made him do a pass-through, and that essentially ended his race. Scott Dixon would not really recover after leading 95 laps, and he would end up finishing in the 21st position. Tough break for Scott, and I mentioned it in Friday's show that Scott Dixon, if there's a way, he will find it to take himself out of contention. And sure enough, this year it was his own fault, not his pit crew's fault, his fault. The last few years it was circumstance, the caution coming out at the wrong time. This year, again, pit road speeding, and it sucks for Scott Dixon. Honestly, I think he was the strongest car all day, But of course, the other big story was 6 laps of racing to go. Jimmy Johnson smacked the outside wall, ended his day. And that's unfortunate. He was having a decent run. He wasn't really in contention most of the race. But he was putting together kind of a decent run. And I think he did okay in his first Indy 500. But again, to end it that way, just not good. But, that would lead to race control having to make a big decision as they came across the line with 5 to go. This caution, of course, with how hard Jimmy Johnson smacked the wall, with how much cleanup they had to do, there's a chance this race wouldn't have gotten restarted. Well, race control, seeing how the last few years have gone, have decided, you know what? We got to throw the red flag. We cannot finish this race under caution. Shades of Piggott, if you remember Spencer Piggott, in the August Indy 500, Piggott smacked the pit wall and essentially ended his race day. and that led to the caution that ended the race. That helped Takuma Sato win, I believe, his second. So they didn't want that to happen again, and I'm glad they didn't allow it to happen again because it would have been bad. I know Marcus Ericsson didn't want that, but it paid off for him. Of course, they got the caution again. They restarted with 2 laps to go, and that's when Ericsson held on for the win. But I must say that I thought for sure that caution would help Tony Kanaan. Of course, Pato O'Ward finished second. He wasn't really as quick as the Chip Ganassi Hondas, but he was in the right place at the right time. And then, of course, Tony Kanaan finishing in third. And that one was a shocker because I really didn't think he would run well being in that one-off ride. Excuse me. I didn't think he'd run well in a one-off, so kudos to Tony Kanaan. He ran a great race, and of course that is also his best finish since his 2013 Indianapolis 500. As we look on down the list, though, Felix Rosenqvist finished fourth, a strong showing from Arrow McLaren SP. Alexander Rossi finishes fifth. I just want to say this about Alexander Rossi. I was wrong about him, too. I thought for sure he would be a pretender. He hasn't won in the last few years. His pit crew messed him up. I watched that final stop, and I watched it closely. I'm like, how's it going? How is his crew going to mess him up this time? And this time they nailed it. So congrats to, Alexander Rossi. I know he wanted the win. I'm sure he did, just like everybody else. But to come away top 5 after the struggles that he has had the last few years, I think that's a huge victory for this team. Connor Daly came home in 6th. The 4-time Indy 500 winner, Helio Castroneves, comes home in 7th, and he plans to run next year, so watch out for that. His teammate Simon Pagenaud finishes 8th, Alex Palou in 9th, and I've got to give a tip of the cap to this guy. Santino Ferrucci comes home in 10th, and I called it that. I said he would be the top finishing Dreyer and Reinbold car. Of course, the race did finish under caution ultimately, but it was on the final lap, the final corner, they threw the caution, and it was for his teammate, Sage Karam, who was okay after a hard crash on that inside wall. But can I just say a tip of the cap to Santino Ferrucci, and what the hell is it going to take for this guy to get a full-time ride? He has matured so much in the last few years. He's run well, not just at the Indy 500, but last year he ran so well in races that were ultimately put together last second. Same thing happened at Barber, I believe, when Jack Harvey had to miss the race due to an injury. So what's it going to take to get Santino Ferrucci a full-time ride in a halfway decent ride where he can outperform that equipment and frankly run up front? To run 10th in the Indy 500, your first year with a new team, I think that says a lot about how you drive. And not to mention, again, we know Santino Ferrucci had a history of being an aggressive driver, but it looks like, again, he's matured a lot in the last few years. He deserves this more than anything else. If he wants it, he should have it full time. Now, I know Dreyer and Reinbold won't give it to him, but other teams like, I know McLaren's already decided for, Andretti's already decided for, but I look at teams like Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan. Why haven't they signed him yet? Okay, why? Maybe Ed Carpenter Racing, because I'm sure they're going to lose Rinus VeeKay at the end of the year. Something they should look into for sure. This one was another shocker. Juan Pablo Montoya comes home in 11th. I didn't expect him to do well. He was slow all week, and he comes home in the 11th spot. Right behind him, J.R. Hildebrand, Joseph Newgarden, Graham Rahal, Will Power, David Malukas, and Kyle Kirkwood, 16-17. Now, none of them won Indy 500 Rookie of the Year. Jimmy Johnson took home the honors. Christian Lundgaard finished 18th. This one was shocking. Ed Carpenter, 19th. It was a tough go for him in that race, and I believe he got caught on the pit lane, and that's what ended his day. Devlin DeFrancesco rounds out the top 20, and that's kind of how the race went. Ultimately, the Indy 500, great race. It did not disappoint like it never does. It never disappoints, and this year was no different. That's my thoughts on it. I was way off on Takuma Sato, though. That I will say, 25th. But Jimmy Johnson's performance was good. Roman looked like he was pretty solid. He looked like he was in for a top 10 day before he kind of just lost control of the race car. And that's unfortunate, you know. But then Colton Herta, one thing I think we've learned is Andretti's got to go back to the drawing board yet again for the Indy 500. For years, they were the team to beat in the Indy 500. In the last 2 or 3, they've been lucky. Rossi was the best guy, and he was 5th. You'd have to go way down the line to Devlin DeFrancesco, who was 20th. Okay, and then of course Marco Andretti 22nd. Roman Grosjean or Colton Herta 30th. Roman Grosjean 31st. You've got to go back to the drawing board at this point because something's not right in that Andretti camp. But Chip Ganassi came to play on Sunday, and it was just fun to watch. And I certainly hope that they go with this 5-car effort next year. But moving on to racing news, Trackhouse update, of course. If you recall, on last Tuesday we talked about Project 91, the new Trackhouse initiative to get overseas drivers to race in the NASCAR Cup Series. Well, we got our first, and it is 2007 Formula One champion Kimi Raikkonen. He will be driving for Trackhouse in the number 91 at Watkins Glen International Raceway. For those who, again, don't know Kimi Raikkonen, 2007 Formula One champ, as I mentioned, and of course he retired from F1 after the 2021 season. Wasn't expected to race this year. I believe he's a principal for a motocross team right now. You have to go back about 11 years to find his last time he ran in NASCAR. Yes, he did run in NASCAR for those who are new to the sport or maybe don't remember that far back. He ran in 2011 at Charlotte Motor Speedway in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race for Nemco Motorsports. I believe that was a collaboration with Kyle Busch Motorsports for the number 87. And then he ran in the Camping World Truck Race at Charlotte the week before for Kyle Busch Motorsports. This one was a little less known. He had a deal with Robbie Gordon Motorsports in 2011 as well to run in the NASCAR Cup race at Sonoma Raceway. And during a test before the race, he crashed the race car, and Robbie Gordon canceled the contract offer. So Kimi Raikkonen back in stock cars. I think that's exciting. It's funny. I don't recall who I said. I think I said Ricciardo was one I thought would be a possibility. The other one that I said was a possibility was Scott Dixon. I remember that clearly. That I said Scott Dixon might just be the guy that gets the nod at the Indy road course. But those were the two I had at the top of my mind because Ricciardo was one who, he test drove the Dale Earnhardt car around COTA. And then, of course, we had Lewis Hamilton on that list, I think. But Lewis Hamilton wasn't one I took seriously. But I'm glad to see Kimi Raikkonen giving it a chance. And, of course, keep in mind, I will be at the Watkins Glen International Raceway in August. So, hopefully, I'll get a chance to meet a Formula One world champion. Of course, the only F1 driver I've met in my life is no longer in F1 and has no desire to return. That is Roman Grosjean, So, looking forward to it. I'm actually headed to Watkins Glen today as well, so right after I finish recording, so you guys won't, well, while you guys are watching, I'll be there. Anyway, the other big news, Tony Kanaan, of course, we go back to him. This really should have been the Indy 500 stories, but Tony Kanaan wants one more shot at the Indy 500. Of course, after the race, he said this likely will be his final IndyCar race in the Indy 500. He's 47 years old, but Chip Ganassi has stated he might want him back for one more shot. Of course, reminder, I did just say it, he finished third in the Indy 500. It is his best finish since he won in 2013, and I certainly hope he gets one more shot at it. Tony Kanaan still got something left in the tank, and you know, I was nervous this second stint at Chip Ganassi Racing because he struggled mightily in his first stint there. And then, of course, he went to Foyt and struggled there. I thought, man, he's at the back half of his career. He's not where he needs to be. And really, the last 2 years, he's been strong. He has shown progress. And I was shocked Ganassi gave him another shot, but it's worked out. I hope he gets one more shot at the Indy 500. You know, he's a fan favorite. I would love to see him go out and he can build off that third place finish. I would hope that they give him a real shot to win next year if they bring him back, and I certainly hope they will. I know partnership won't be an issue. I can tell you right now, sponsorship will not be an issue for Tony Kanaan. I mean, I'm sure if he wants to go again, American Legion will be right behind him. And if not them, maybe someone like 7-Eleven or Bryant, the Bryant Air Conditionings or whatever it is. One of them will for sure back him if he wants to run again. So we'll pay attention this offseason. We'll see if Ganassi brings him back or maybe another team. You know, you never know. Let's go to our race weekend picks, and we kick it off with the final race. The final Chevy Grand Prix of Belle Isle. Keep in mind, next year this race will move to the streets of downtown Detroit. And Pato O'Ward is my pick to win this race. He finished second in the Indy 500. He won this race last year. He's got a lot to build off of with that. And again, I still think he's finding his stride at this point in the season. So he is my pick to win that race. We now go to the Camping World Truck Series at Gateway, which will run Saturday afternoon. I haven't seen the entry list yet, but for now I'm going to go Ross Chastain. Otherwise, I'm going to go with, John Hunter Nemechek. If it's not Ross Chastain, I'm going to go John Hunter for the race. But as of now, it is Ross Chastain. NASCAR Xfinity Series at Portland this weekend. Yes. The Xfinity Series is running at Portland Raceway, and I'm going to go with AJ Allmendinger. Again, a track some of these NASCAR Xfinity guys have not seen. I believe AJ ran back in the IndyCar days. I'm sure he has, but that's why I'm picking him. NASCAR Cup Series at Gateway. By the way, Michael Waltrip in the booth this weekend. Thought I'd give you guys a heads up. If you like him, don't like him, I'm indifferent. I'm indifferent. So, NASCAR Cup at Gateway. I'm picking Kyle Larson to win this, but I do think Kyle Busch will have his hand in this race. Kyle Busch, one of the few that has actually run at Gateway. And again, this is a big weekend for a lot of race fans, not just in the St. Louis area, but people have been calling for this race. I know I have for the last few years. I've called for this race to happen. I've said, look, they need to find a way to get Gateway on the schedule, and it's great to finally see Gateway host a NASCAR Cup race. And to see a NASCAR Cup race in the St. Louis area is even better. So Kyle Larson is my pick for the Cup race. All right, we want to thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of Out of Turn 4 this week. We will be back next Tuesday at our normal time slot. And of course, be sure to tune in to No Final Bell tomorrow. I believe there are 2 episodes to watch, so be sure to tune in for that. And then, of course, I will be back here Sunday morning for, you guessed it, Sunday morning Tinkle. Until then, goodbye, everyone.